Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Social Work England session. I'm really pleased to see everybody this morning in attendance. We have two really good speakers coming up for this session, which is entitled "Co-producing the Northwest Collaborative Practice Educator Training." I will be passing on to the speakers shortly. But before I do that, I just want to talk you through a few pointers. First of all, so this is part of our Social Work Week sessions. They've been running since Monday and will conclude today. We do have some more sessions today, which you're more than welcome to book onto and attend if you haven't already. We will be recording most of our content from the week has been recorded and will be available post-event as well. The other thing to say is that we have a third party speaking across Social Work Week, and bear in mind that for third parties, opinions are the speaker's own and don't necessarily reflect the views of Social Work England. And finally, join the conversation. We encourage you to access what's going on through the social media channels and make comments and share reflections. And it's completely something that we would request that you do if you can. So enough from me. It's now over to Nicola and Janine. If I can pass over to you now, Nicola and Janine. It's yeah, I'll leave it to you. The floor's yours.
Thanks, Gavin.
Thanks, Gavin. Hi and welcome, everyone. We're really excited to be here to share our project regarding practice educators refresher training. And happy Friday to everyone and happy World Social Work Week. So my name is Janine McLoughlin. I'm the partnership lead for the Greater Manchester Social Work Academy, and I'm here with Nicola.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicola Whiteside. I'm the Partnership Manager for the Cheshire and Merseyside Social Work Teaching Partnership.
So we're here to talk to you today about co-producing and the co-delivery of our Northwest Collaborative project regarding refresher training for practice educators. But just before we go into that, we just want to give some context regarding social work teaching partnerships. So next slide, please. So social work teaching partnerships, what are they? So many of you on the call today may be in organisations that are with a teaching partnership. Some of you may not. They started in 2015 and they were developed by the Department of Education and the Department of Health and Social Care with a view to transforming the quality of education and experience received by social work students and practitioners across England. And they aim to achieve this by formalising the collaborative working between the universities or higher education institutions, local authorities, national health services, and voluntary and private sectors. They also aim to raise the quality of social work by attracting high quality students to the profession, ensuring that the existing social workers had the necessary knowledge and skills to equip them to practice effectively, and also to look at the workforce planning and development in terms of addressing recruitment and retention issues. Next slide, please. So the current picture of teaching partnerships for social work across England, in 2015, there was 27 teaching partnerships nationally. In 2023, the funding for social work teaching partnerships ceased, and this has impacted some partnerships across England, which has meant some of the capacity for development and project working has been limited. This has been disappointing for many of us. However, what it has done is it's enabled us to revisit some of our priorities, but also motivated us to think more differently and creatively about how we can seek to look to work more collaboratively widely, so outside of our region, and looking at joining up with other regions on shared ambitions. Some teaching partnerships, like myself and Nicola's teaching partnerships in Greater Manchester and Cheshire and Merseyside, have remained operational by implementing a subscription model. And the National Teaching Partnership Network, which was developed when Teaching Partnership started, still remains active, meeting on a regular basis with all regions across England, coming together to support social work, updating and sharing projects to support the development across children and families, adults, mental health and education. And as I guess my other message was that the beauty of teaching partnerships, that it does bring the interface and the collaboration between children, adults, education and mental health social work all together on a shared ambition. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the Greater Manchester Social Work Academy. We're centred up in the northwest of England. We currently consist of 10 local authorities, which is Bolton, Bury, Trafford, Tameside, Stockport, Oldham, Rochdale, Salford, Manchester and Wigan local authorities. We also have our 4 universities in Greater Manchester, which is the University of Manchester, Manchester Metropolitan University and the University of Salford and University of Greater Manchester, which was University of Bolton. And we have 1 NH Trust, which is Pennine Care. We have links with Greater Manchester Mental Health. We also have links with the Greater Manchester Voluntary and Sector agencies. We have a good relationship with the National Institute of Health and Social Care Research, and we have a strong link with our Greater Manchester Social Care Academy. Our purpose is to collaborate and come together to ensure that social workers are equipped at all stages of their career to provide the best experience and service to the public and to the communities of Greater Manchester. And we do this by recognising the mutual benefits of working together on these challenges and coming together to look at how we can provide those services the best way that we can.
Next slide, Gavin, please. Okay, so the Cheshire and Merseyside Social Work Teaching Partnership consists of 15 primary partners. That includes 4 universities, 8 local authorities, 2 trusts and a PVI. Our vision is not just about professional development, it's about real impact. We aim to improve life chances for children, young people, adults and families by ensuring that social workers are well trained, well supported and well prepared to face the challenges of the profession. By focusing on recruitment, retention and ongoing development, we're building a workforce that's resilient, passionate and committed to making a tangible difference in the lives of those we serve. Next slide, please. Collaboration is at the heart of both of the Greater Manchester and the Cheshire and Merseyside Teaching Partnership approach, and that's both nationally and regionally. We firmly believe that when we work together, we can achieve so much more. Our partnerships have led to innovative programmes that strengthen the profession from the ground up. We've got several examples of collaboration that we've engaged in that you can see on the screen. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them because obviously we're here today to really focus on the Northwest Collaborative PE refresher training. But things have included co-designing a manager's programme and commissioning training across all local authorities and trusts in one teaching partnership. Additionally, we've devised cross-region practice educator training and development around PEPs in another. The Northwest Collaborative Initiative we're here to share today is a real testament to what is possible when you bring together expertise, commitment, a shared purpose, and you all come together, pooling resources, knowledge. We're really driving change that directly benefits social workers, their students, and ultimately the communities they serve. Next slide, please. The Northwest Collaborative, although myself and Janine are here today, the Northwest Collaborative actually includes another teaching partnership, Greater Lancashire, plus 2 other local authorities that have joined the Northwest Collaborative. We actually have a reach across 27 LAs and trusts across this region. Next slide, please.
So when we're looking at developing a Northwest approach, we was originally approached by the Regional Improvement Project Plan called the RIP. And this is a project that's funded by the DfE and is being managed by the Northwest Directors of Children's Services, and they came to teaching partnerships to seek support around what can we do to increase the training and the recruitment of practice educators. So the initial thoughts were around increasing the capacity for practice education training. When we all came together, we recognised that each region had some differing approaches to how we delivered our practice education training. We had different systems and different processes in terms of the development of practice educators. One of the things that we all recognised that we had a mutual challenge with was the retention of practice educators. So we all had processes and systems in terms of how we train and quality assure the training of practice educators. But quite often we all had the shared challenge of then keeping practice educators within the role and supporting students. And then when there was gaps within that practice educators training, the support that was available for them to refresh upon that knowledge. So with that, we came together to look to put together a proposal regarding practice educator refresher training, and we felt that this would be something that would help address those challenges across the Northwest region. So we initially looked at how we were going to do that. So we focused on a one-day practice educator refresher training programme. That would be an online day where it was more accessible and flexible for people to attend across the region of the Northwest. And then we looked at bringing in the expertise from the Northwest to look at building that programme. We also looked at then thinking about if we have participants from across the Northwest and we're delivering that training on a regional footing, how do we then make sure that then they've got their local knowledge from their universities? So what we then agreed was to have what we call a local session, so a follow-up session that would happen after the one-day training session, and that would happen within their local area. So all participants that have been on the training a couple of weeks later would then attend a local session with one of their university leads, and that was aimed at refreshing over the processes and the policies regarding onboarding a student for placement. So for example, looking at the placement handbooks, looking at the placement application process and the forms, so that our practice educators were fully refreshed on the process right from the beginning of when they receive that application. What do they need to do next when it comes to supporting a student? Next slide, please. When we came together to look at the refresher training, we looked at what the aims of that training would be, and we wanted to ensure that all trained practice educators were up to date with the current practice, policy and processes, and also the current context around practice education. Where is practice education now? We wanted the training to be fully aimed at supporting the retention of practice educators in each region across the Northwest. And we wanted the training to be able to infuse and motivate, reinvigorate and re-energise and re-engage practice educators to come back to the role of being an educator and supporting students on placement. Next slide, please.
So how we went about it, what we actually did, we worked together as a Northwest collaborative to design and deliver the refresher training. This involved seconding a higher education institution practice lead with a deep passion for practice education. We also secured dedicated practice leads from each teaching partnership or lead local authority and brought them all together. We systematically collated baseline data, and this approach ensured that we could measure our progress and assess the tangible impact of our work over time. Next slide, please. We set ourselves some really bold and ambitious targets for registration. We felt that with the funding that actually we could project numbers based on our previous engagement, but what we hoped to do was exceed past participation rates for the PE refresher training. One of the things that we did do is we didn't just target the normal PEs who required refresher training. We actually opened it out to any practice educator who might be on training, but they might have been doing it and just not submitted their portfolio or that piece of work, to reignite their enthusiasm for practice education and re-engage them back in their training. So it was kind of to refresh any practice educator that felt that they needed to be refreshed. We also identified key areas of development by gathering insights from existing PEs, and we structured the training to address the evolving needs of educators who work with increasingly diverse and ever-changing student cohorts. To further support the attendees, we established a Northwest Open Access repository, and this contained key resources and literature, ensuring that every participant had ongoing access to valuable materials. Next slide, please. Regular meetings were integral to our approach. This allowed us to continuously refine and enhance the programme, based on the feedback that we were getting, to create a dynamic and effective learning package for practice educators. This ongoing evaluation meant we could adapt, improve, and ensure that the training remained relevant and impactful. A crucial element of our success was the role of the Cheshire Merseyside Social Work Teaching Partnership in providing that administrative oversight. The Cheshire Merseyside took the responsibility for managing the entire project, ensuring that key tasks were completed efficiently and that all deadlines were met. And what I would say, I actually reflected on this and felt that actually doing it across a wider region, I thought it would be more difficult to make sure people kept to deadlines, but in actual fact, it was more straightforward than doing it just in my local region. Next slide, please.
So as Nicola's mentioned, we all came together, and what we did was that we, in that group, we had the highest expertise across the Northwest in terms of practice educators, in terms of those people in the universities who were delivering the training and the placement leads, but also in the local authorities that were responsible for supporting students on placement and the training of their practice educators. And we kind of looked at the content, and we were thinking about what major or main key themes and topics do we need to implement within this training, given that it's only a one-day refresher training. We noted, as Nicola said, we'd taken feedback and we sought advice from practice educators across our regions. We looked at the feedback from students, for example, from the QAPLs. We talked to our employers and listened to some of the examples that they felt was needed on a refresher training. And what we agreed, which are the topics which are on screen. So yeah, lots of topics there to get in a one-day refresher training, but we managed to do it. We felt having some current context and giving some highlight to the future of practice education was really important to those that were refreshing. We looked at topics around supervision, so doing a refresh over supervision models and implementation of them in practice, giving some practice examples. We looked at neurodiversity and additional needs, so looking at individual difference, looking at the needs and the current needs of the ever-changing forefront of students that are coming through on our cohorts, and how best to support them via reasonable adjustments, and also raising awareness. We looked at anti-discriminatory and anti-oppressive practices and looking at implementations and models such as the Mandela model for supporting. And that also then links into the building of relationships. This was an important part, we felt, for practice educators to refresh on right from the outset of the induction. How do they maintain and continue to build an effective, supportive relationship with their students? We agreed on topic areas around supporting students that struggle. So how best can practice educators engage and support those students, addressing their learning needs and making sure that they are supported throughout the placement process. And we also felt that it was important we needed to do a segment around emotional resilience and well-being. How do we promote practice education, practice educators to look after themselves and take the time out to strengthen their resilience within the workplace, within the role, but also within the role of being a practice educator. So these were the topics that we kind of settled on to cover as the main topic features throughout the training. Initially, we were having trainers, facilitators were going to deliver this. We're going to share it across the Northwest. And what we felt was better was having a process of where we brought in a trainer on a particular topic. So it means that on that day's training, they will then get a trainer or a facilitator to deliver a topic area that they have the expertise in. So there'll be multiple trainers delivering an hour session within that training. Next slide, please. So the impact of the project so far, what impact has it made across the Northwest and across the region? What we've found is it has brought consistency to the way PE refresher training is being delivered. It's also brought consistency to the region of the Northwest in regards to who should access and undertake the PE refresher training and how often and what it involves. It's also enhanced the training that we previously had by identifying the best practice and the very best facilitators that we have across our region, across the Northwest, utilising their expertise and their experience within practice education and practice, and sharing that knowledge and those skills across the Northwest region. It has also reduced the cost to all our employers across the Northwest, as currently we're previously to this project, we were delivering refresher training on an individual basis within our own regions locally, and often incurring the charges ourselves. Next slide, please, Gavin. It's enabled us to have a greater opportunity in terms of accessibility of the training. Prior to the project, most regions, I know myself and Nicola, we were able to provide refresher training maybe once or twice a year. And this would largely be based on the resource that was available within our regions at that time. What this pilot and this project has enabled us is to be able to make sure that we can deliver this up to 4 times a year. And with that, we've developed a sustainable model across the Northwest that we can continue post-funding to deliver these sessions 4 times a year continually, and ensuring that the training is of quality training of a high standard, and the delivery and the approach to the training. Next slide. Thank you.
Our data, our whole range of data that we've collated, as you can see on the screen, confirms that practice educators highly value the training that they've been receiving. It keeps them informed of the latest developments and strengthens their commitment to their role. The insights gathered have been instrumental in refining our training delivery and identifying emerging needs and ensuring that we stay on course to achieve our intended outcomes. Next slide, please. The refresher training has been a vital component of ongoing professional development for our PE workforce. It ensures that practice educators remain highly skilled, well-informed and confident in their practice. Additionally, it's played a key role in improving PE retention across our region by fostering engagement and professional growth. Next slide, please. One of the most significant impacts we feel of the training has been the reinforcement of professional identity among PEs. It's something both in GM and Cheshire and Merseyside, we've been really keen to put that focus on that, identity of practice education right out there and being a practice educator. Many participants shared on their feedback that their experiences help them reconnect their passion for social work education, not just for social work, for practice education, but for social work education. And it reignited their sense of purpose and commitment to the profession. So feedback so far, participants have strongly expressed that they feel remotivated and refreshed. 90% of them are actually saying that they're feeling that remotivated and refreshed in their roles. Many also appreciated the opportunity to reconnect with core skills. And as you saw on the slide before, Janine actually showed you some of the sessions that we have. What they also appreciated was actually that they were able to gain new perspectives on some of the things that they'd previously done and learned in their initial training. And they also appreciated networking with other educators, not just within their own local region, but right across the Northwest, which again brings additional perspective to their practice education training. Next slide, please. A reoccurring theme in the feedback was that the session reminded participants why they became a practice educator in the first place, and it reignited their passion and commitment. And it was so evident in the room on each of the training days that we've had what committed, passionate practice educators we have across the region, and why they are there and why they are doing it, and the benefit that this will ultimately bring to students and their placements. Next slide, please. Our model is built for long-term sustainability. We decided that right from the get-go, that we needed to ensure that although this funding was like kick-starting what we wanted to do across the region, with all the positives that emerged from this, we were determined that we wanted to keep this post-funding. So as a collaborative, we're committed to co-delivering this training beyond the initial funding period, and we've already got it lined up for the rest of this year, and we will continue to do so. Looking ahead, we're actively exploring new opportunities. We felt that this worked so well and so effectively. And we have actually one other project already in progress, a return to social work programme in conjunction with Manchester University across Cheshire and Merseyside and Greater Manchester. And that's currently it's running, and we have around 23 potential social workers that have actually registered for that programme. So it's been very effective looking at that together as well as a collaborative. Another project that we put a proposal for is around co-designing and co-delivery of training for PE mentors and assessors. And again, that need came out of some of the feedback that we had from the PE refresher training. Additionally, we are considering other collaborative projects, and what we hope to do is further strengthen social work education and practice across the Northwest. Next slide, please. That brings our presentation to a close, and on behalf of both myself and Janine, who seems to have disappeared, thank you for your time and engagement. We welcome any thoughts, questions and feedback, and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much for that, Nicola, and thank you, Janine, who is still with us, but I think we're trying to support her with getting her sound fixed. So in the meantime, I will put a question to you. So the first question is, at the moment we only have one question, so please, if people in the audience do feel free to submit something in the Q&A. But the question is, this refresher training sounds great. In my teaching partnership, refresher training is only for those whose practice educator currency has lapsed and is presented in conjunction with new practice educator training. Have your results been shared with other teaching partnerships?
We have actually highlighted it at other teaching partnerships, and we're actually presenting at the Practice Education Development Group on what we've actually done. We did initially think that we wanted to do this just for, you know, the traditional about this is for anybody who's lapsed or 2 years over, not having a student, etc. But we felt that part of our issue across the Northwest is that we had people that started training and never actually completed fully their training. And they might have like completed stage 1, but they'd not done stage 2. And it was about they hadn't really submitted their evidence, their last piece or portfolio, whatever that was. So we actually made a decision to support, we wanted to support them. And the fact is that they hadn't probably had any input since their initial input that they'd had for the training. So we felt that we would open it out to all of those as well to re-engage them. And that has done, that has brought them back in and actually thought, right, I'm going to complete that last piece of work that I need to do and submit that because it was about retention of our practice educators as well that we really wanted. And if we've already put that investment and time and effort in that practice educator, we thought we wanted that to continue and we wanted to just re-motivate them again.
Thank you, Nicola. Now I have just seen that Janine is back with us, at least visually. Now's a moment of truth, and we're going to see if Janine can be heard as well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Sorry about that. Don't know what happened.
I don't know if you actually managed to catch any of that from the last question, but if you've got anything to add, please do. Otherwise, I can move on to the next one.
No, Nicola's covered it. Like I say, we're planning on sharing our project findings across our teaching partnership networks, but also nationally with the Social Work England groups and things like that.
Thank you. So I've got a question here. What support and well, I suppose the question is do you? But what first of all, but what support and training do you offer to practice educator mentors and assessors?
Do you want to take that first and then I'll take it, or do you want me to take it, Janine?
Yeah, if you want to take it, Nicola, and then.
Okay. So we have for our practice, we actually call them practice educator mentors, but they do the role of the assessor as well. We offer training at the moment. We offered it annually, where it would be a 2-hour session where they would come along, but it was a very, very packed 2-hour session to actually get in everything that they needed to do. We've placed with our current PEPS program, we place practice educator mentors right at the heart of that. We think that they're so important for our practice educators in training that we actually give them additional responsibility of them actually submitting the portfolio that the practice educator submits at the end, because we think they're the person that's overseeing that training and monitoring it and supporting that practice educator in training. So they're the best person to actually say, yes, we feel this person meets and addresses those standards to be a practice educator. It does go to a panel and we have a panel that moderates it, but our practice educator mentor assessors are really important within our TP. So we offer that training. What we've decided to do is we made a decision a few years ago that all our practice educator mentors had to be trained annually. And we know when we're just doing it once a year, because that was the capacity that we had within our TP, that actually some are not able to attend that. So what we developed this year, we developed a train the trainer. So what this enabled is our universities then trained a practice lead within the local authority to be able to then deliver that training internally to their practice educator mentors and assessors. And that's so that we can monitor and check who's trained as a practice educator mentor and make sure that when they're assigned to a practice educator in training, that they have had this most appropriate training and suitable training. And that's why when we did that, we realized that, yes, that it's quite labor intensive and obviously capacity of people to be able to do that. And that's why obviously then we had a discussion with Greater Manchester and the other local authorities to say, let's actually put a proposal together to see if we can do something based on the model that we've done with the PE refresher training, where we can do something across the Northwest because it's worked so successfully. Let's do it with PE mentor training. And that's why we put that proposal in.
Thank you. Um, just looking at some of the other questions that we have coming in here. I think there's some people who've expressed some interest actually in the route into becoming a practice educator, and like there's quite I'll try and sort of combine a couple of questions here really. It's is a minimum experience required, and is there a clear route to becoming a practice educator?
So to be a practice educator, yes, there's a minimum experience that you have to have as a social worker, and it's normally 2 years plus to actually consider being a practice educator. What we've done in our teaching partnership is we have identified a route through. So what we say is if you're interested in enabling learning, you could potentially start thinking about maybe being an on-site supervisor. And we do training for on-site supervisors. And then actually you could be an on-site supervisor, get a taste of it, see whether it's something that you like, you enjoy, it's something you have capacity for. And then we say, actually, then get your placement coordinator, so whoever in your workforce development team that recommends and puts you forward for the PEPS programme within our teaching partnership. Our teaching partnership, we actually own the PEPS programme, and the 4 universities feed into that and write it and deliver it. And the reason that we do that, I'll be totally honest, it was initially so that we took away the cost of it so that we can deliver it to our partners for free. And so all our partners get access to that. Now we deliver that, usually once a year, and we still know that that's not enough for the capacity that we have in our teaching partnership, because we always need more practice educators at the moment than actually we can train, and the local authorities need more practice educators. But that's how we currently do our route into practice education.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you now. Hopefully it'll
I can
last.
speak. So similar to Nicola, the progression routes for practice educators in Greater Manchester, quite often in our employer partners will have a route to follow. So there'll be a post ASYE, newly qualified social work stage. There's an introduction around to on-site supervisor training, which can be offered to social workers. That's often like a taster where you support a student on placement, but you're not undertaking the role of the educator. And then, like Nicola said, post 2 years qualifying that's when you can then be considered to look at participating in the training to be a practice educator. Some areas have practice education as part of their progression routes in terms of becoming an experienced social worker. We've been looking at developing more of a centralised route across Greater Manchester, looking at what all our different employers do in terms of progression, and looking at different pathways into, and continuing professional development and practice for social workers. In Greater Manchester, it's very similar to Cheshire and Merseyside. We own our practice education training. We have a blended learning model, so it involves some online training, a workbook, and then with that, we then have face-to-face sessions. That training was co-designed by all our partners, and the face-to-face sessions are co-designed and delivered by all our partners, and we run that throughout the year. What that program's enabled us to do is to make sure that we have flexibility and accessibility throughout the year to the training course, because like Nicola said, it's managing we have quite a lot of a demand for the training, so we work together to look at a different approach to how we do that, and the blended learning model has been working quite well for us within our region.
Brilliant. There's something thinking about regional, but there's somebody from a different region has said that it's making reference to the NHS services, because I think there's been reference to obviously local authorities, and they're saying that in that particular area there aren't any practice educator opportunities in their NHS service, but there were several of them who would love to do it though. Have you got any perhaps advice or pointers for somebody in that situation, bearing in mind it's in a different part of the country?
Yeah, we actually do include our NHS trusts in our teaching partnerships. Both of us have got NHS trusts, where we can offer them. What I'd say is at the moment, I would love to be able to say, oh, come to us and we could do your practice educator training for you. But unfortunately, our capacity is for our partners. And we have a set amount that we offer to our PVIs. And they're the PVIs that are actually taking the students from the university. So the university gets some kind of like kickback for actually doing it. So we wouldn't be able to offer, I don't know whether GM would, but we wouldn't be able to. But I would say approach your local university, actually see what they're doing and what they're offering, actually see if there is a teaching partnership that is still active. And if there isn't, approach them and say to them you would be potentially interested in looking at developing something together, because that's where it's starting the conversation that really, actually opens up doors and sees what you can do and building those relationships. I'm sorry, I hope that answers your question and helps you. But that's all I can offer at this moment. I don't know whether Janine can add to that.
I think as a first point of call really is to approach your local universities, because if you're looking at taking a student, the universities are looking for placements all of the time, looking for different areas of practice, statutory, for adults, for children, for mental health. So depending on where you work, I know every university across England will be very open to new placement areas that they could look at, using for their students, and quite often a lot of the universities may deliver a practice education course, or they may be involved, like Nicola said, within a partnership or within a local agreement about how they train practice educators. So I think that would be your main point of contact as a first one. Like Nicola said, we have an NHS trust within ours, and what we do is that we do open our training up, but it is just for Greater Manchester. It's for those placements that are supporting our students within Greater Manchester.
Thank you both. I mean, actually, I think you have given a good steer there as well. And of course, what you've provided today is evidence of a really good model, which people can perhaps use in their conversations. So I'm just looking at this one here. I'm going to read it, but I haven't finished reading about it. But yeah, I think there's a question here about this about whether it can happen outside of the Northwest. So I think it's kind of covered really with what you've said already. And the next question is, are you following the long-term impact of the refresher on practice educators?
Yes, we are. We are continuing that, because that's obviously part of our sustainable model. And what we've agreed as a group is, as things change and develop, we will, enhance the package as a result of that, both based on the feedback, but also on the change in nature of our students that we get. So we monitor that very closely. But we are monitoring the impact of the people that are doing the PE refresher training on the students as well. We've got data on that.
Thank you. There's a question here about, but the question is, are practice educator mentors case holding, and are they able to remain in the mentor role? And I wonder if people ask to stop being a mentor due to other responsibilities.
Yeah, what sometimes happens with our PE mentors, that's one area that we struggle to maintain, because in our progression route, it's you become a practice educator, and then, after you've had 5 learners, you become a practice educator mentor or assessor. But by the time that you've actually taken 5 learners, you've looked for, to actually become a manager, or opportunities like that, or you might have moved local authority, or lots of things happen in that time. So we lose quite a lot of our experienced practice educators, and we've been really monitoring that in RTP to actually see what is the percentage of experienced practice educators and what's what the percentage is of those we had in training. And initially we actually had a greater percentage in training, so all of our students were actually getting trained practice educators instead of the experienced practice educators. And we have made that shift now. We actually have more experienced practice educators, and what we're hoping that will grow and then eventually grow our pool of practice educator mentors. Because we did that focus on practice educator mentor training and actually did the train the trainer, that has helped to grow our practice educator trainer, mentors. And yes, they are case holders. And yes, that it does put a lot of capacity on them, but they can maintain their practice education status by actually doing the practice educator mentor role. And what we offer as well in RTP is we say to them, I say offer, but we say to them, as part of being this, you have to join a panel at some point and do the assessment of the portfolios as well. So they're looking across, actually what practices there right across the region that's coming in from our practice educators in training. But they absolutely love doing those panels because they're learning and they're actually seeing other practice from other local authorities and other PEs in training. So that's really helping and supporting them to kind of like stay in that role, and we're hoping retain the practice educator mentors. But we are realistic that people go and get progression, and they use this as part of to actually demonstrate what they've achieved, but what we're trying to do is retain those people.
Thank you. There was just something actually that stood out for me earlier, that you, on one of your slides, you made reference to emotional resilience for practice educators, and I'm wondering if there's any particular issues that you've observed that can sometimes come up for practice educators that have made you hone in on that particular one.
I think some of that is around looking at the current landscape of practice education across England. We know there's been some research done, with Social Work England looking at the recommendations for practice education. And I think what we've identified, particularly within our region, and we've been taking note of the Look After Your Practice Educator guidance, which came out from BASBA recently. And we've been really centering on the expectations for placement, because that can vary from organisation, and then not only that, it varies within organisation between different teams depending on the demand and the type of work that team is then carrying out, and the responsibility of the practice educator. So we've been really looking at some of those key themes around the expectations of students when they come on placement. Are some areas thinking around students coming in, having a full caseload and being involved. Is that an expectation that's too high because these students are they're still in that learning aspect, and that also puts an added pressure on a practice educator who would often have their own caseload, and as well as supporting then a student with some casework that they're then carrying out. So we are doing some work over these next few months. Our focus for the next 12 months in Greater Manchester is to be looking at that and looking at sort of like an agreed minimum standards regarding placement expectations, because we want that placement to flourish. We want that student to be in an environment that enables them to flourish, but also allows the practice educator to practice educate, and to be able to provide that real opportunity for learning and development, but also to do that with passion, with motivation, to really motivate then their students to get to be the best, have the best experience that they possibly can. So we are doing some work around that currently, and we're hoping to have a conference in the summer, which will do some work around that as well. A couple of members of our teaching partnership in our practice education groups were also part of the development of that good Look After Your Practice Educator guidance. So that's helpful because we've got some insights from those that came up with that guidance that are feeding into that.
Yeah, because like there's that saying, isn't it? You can't pour from an empty pot. And the fact is we need to make sure that our practice educators are looked after, but also that they are able to maintain that self-care. You know, we know that the student population is changing a lot, and you know, students are coming with more diverse needs, and that brings additional challenges to our practice educators. So it's about actually, well, how can you support yourself first as a practice educator, and then how can you actually support the student to do self-care as well? So it's both aspects of that we try to bring in there, but ultimately starting with the practice educator first.
Thank you. And there's something else that I'd just like to ask you here. It's you also talked about struggling students as something to focus on for practice educators to be supported in working on. And is there anything more that you're able to tell us about that? About again why that was singled out, and you know what you've maybe some practical steps that you've taken in relation to that.
I think one of the main reasons regarding making sure we included a segment around that, because I think it's every practice educator's worst nightmare, is that when they've got a student that is struggling in a particular area, and quite often for, you know, if a practice educator has been out of sort of the practice for a while, it's like knowing what sort of models of practice, what support that they can provide, how do they really get in tune with that student, and even on our practice educator training, that's often one of the areas that most of those that are in training want to know about. You know, they quite often they will say, what will I do if my student is struggling with a particular area of practice? What can I do to help? What is the policy? What is the procedure? So we wanted to make sure that we covered that within the refresher training, because again, I can imagine that would be an area that would be create a lot of anxiety for practice educators returning. But also we wanted to, you know, really promote some of the, you know, the work that's been happening around like why students sometimes struggle, why students fail, but also making sure that practice educators are confident, because sometimes students need to fail, you know, and it's about having the confidence around that and having, you know, the evidence and the criteria to be able to support those decisions, and practice educators being able to make those decisions confidently. But then addressing, well, when do we address when somebody is struggling? What is that issue? When can we intervene? When do we bring in the tutor? And, you know, what can we do? What can I do as a practice educator in terms of better supporting that student? Because I think sometimes a lot of practice educators, you know, when your student is struggling with a particular area, you often not necessarily take it personal, but you feel that can be a reflection on you as an educator. So it was basically trying to enable that confidence for practice educators to be able to assess that, but also to how best to support that student within practice.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think we address in the training about practice educators not internalising that failure because of the emotional link that they have to the student and to that practice. So we talk about that in the training, but also talk about that, you know, you're not on your own doing this. There should be, you know, we say in our teaching partnership, it's a team that's supporting and developing the student. So the practice educator, yes, ultimately they're writing the report, and you know, but actually there's a university tutor that should be sitting there and supporting as well. There should be the line manager that's supporting as well. There should be the rest of the team, and that's how you know, we're trying to encourage people to look more at it. That it's not you as a lone, you know, practice educator that's saying this student is failing or this student is struggling. Actually, there will be other examples and other people assessing that, even if it is informally, about where this student is and what's required to actually either put them back on track, or actually sometimes just to pause the placement and restart somewhere else or whatever. You know, it's you're not on your own doing that. Or you shouldn't be.
Yes, absolutely. Now this is I think quite a straightforward question, and that's come in. It's talking about the guidance you were talking about earlier. Could you just confirm the title of the guidance, the Look After Your Practice Educator guidance?
I think that's what it's called, isn't it? Look After Your practice educator.
Yeah, I think the person's asking if it's published. So where would you say the best place to access that is?
Oh, on the
Basware.
Basware Basware
Yeah.
website. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think I'll just read this out as it is, because I think you've answered the question, but I think it's quite nice just to read it out. It's your train the trainer course sounds fabulous. The added bit there is can it be rolled out nationwide? But I think you've answered that aspect of the question, so I won't put that to you. There were a few questions that I've not addressed specifically, but I think in the body of what you've talked about, you've covered the issues. There are plenty of other things that would be great to ask, but I can see that we're almost out of time. So I'll just pass it back to you to see if there are any final points you wanted to make before we close for today.
Okay. I think from our end, it's just with what Nicola's saying around the mentor role. In Greater Manchester, we've got there's each sort of employer partner has their own mentors. So we've got people doing individual things. So that was why one of the reasons when we've collaborated on the PE refresher, we was interested to hear about the developments in Cheshire and Merseyside regarding that. So that's why that's one of our proposals going forward, building on what we've achieved so far together, and the success of that. We want to then think about the next stage. So like we were very interested in learning from Cheshire and Merseyside, but then obviously looking moving forward, building something together with that. So yeah, it was just really just to kind of share that with folk, and we're very keen to do other elements together, you know, kind of resource available if we have it.
Yeah, and the thing that I would say is this: other like teaching partnerships or other local authorities and HEIs can come together and actually replicate this. You know, it's not we haven't like gone, oh, this is like, you know, nobody can do this, this is ours, this is whatever. We're you know what, you can see our emails there on the slide. We're offering, you know, please feel free to reach out, you know, using those contact details, you know, and we can show you what we did and how we did it, and we can support you in any way we can. Because the thing is, what we're really, really passionate about is making sure that practice education and practice educators are supported as well as they can be.
Thank you. And thank you again to Nicola and Janine. That was a really good session. I think everyone's really enjoyed it. I'm seeing some great emojis there.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Okay, and everybody, thanks again for your time today. We have more sessions which you're more than welcome to book onto, and maybe we'll see you there. But thank you very much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.